Hey everybody, happy Wednesday night here in Texas. I am jumping on here because I am going to go live with my friend JJ, and we are going to have an organic conversation and we are going to see where things go. So I'm going to let JJ what the conversation becomes. So she should be jumping in. JJ, are you there? All right. Hey!
And we're
And we're
live.
live and we're in America.
And you're still in daytime. And I'm
I
still
know.
in time.
Well, yeah, for sure. You are not because you're in Florida and I'm in Texas.
Yes.
So, but
We're in
at
the
least
same continent, country, but we're still in different
I
time
know.
zones.
I know. Right. Okay. So here's the thing. You and I talked earlier and we were like, what should we talk about? And then I've just decided that I'm going to just throw you for a complete loop because I know you like it. And myself as well. So what I want to ask you is what is the motto or the principle or something? I mean, there's probably not just one. There may be several, and this could go in lots of ways that you live your life by.
Woo! What is the motto and the principle that I live my life by?
Yeah, it could be a phrase. It could be something that you just every time you walk into a situation, you say, like in the back of your mind, you're saying, okay, like this is like the repeating, record in your mind. I'm just curious.
Okay, so I'm going to go. I would love to think on this more and come up with something profound, but I'm just going to shoot from the hip because what comes to mind first thing is live life with no regrets.
Okay.
So I say that because I am intentional about not living backwards, always living forwards. So the only time regrets happen is if I'm constantly facing this way and walking with my where I know I've learned now that I'm older, and I'd like to say more matured, but it's really just time. I'm just older.
Age.
Is whatever decision I made in that season of my life or in that moment, the choice that I made was the choice that I made. Because we're always presented with choices. Regret tells us that I would go back and make a different choice. But really, that's experience tells us that. But we don't have the luxury of experience when we were there.
Yeah.
So whatever choice I made at that point was me making that choice. And so either it was a good choice and I grew from it, or it was a bad one and I grew from it. So living life with regret is always living backwards. So make sure that I don't. And so I'm not living, yesterday's yesterday. And
Yeah.
so
I love that. And I'm not, it's funny because we haven't talked about this, but I'm not surprised that's what you said because I do see you living your life very intentionally forward, but not in a way that totally dismisses the past. But what it does is it turns the past into a learning ground and a soil for learning. And I think that's key. One of, there's an author called Viktor Frankl who wrote about, he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and he took a bunch of Holocaust survivors and he sort of did a study on the ones that sort of came out and were completely resilient. And anyway, there's a whole like case study on it.
yeah.
And what he found is that the people that were succeeding in life, sort of emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, whatever, that it all came back to this one point that they had a redemptive view of suffering, and that they could take any pain or any situation. So that we're obviously talking about suffering in that moment, but actually the bigger picture of that is to have sort of a redemptive view of life or a view that says, what can I learn from
Yeah.
this? Instead of, oh, I wish this didn't happen. I would have made a different decision. Well, you're right. We can't go back and change our decision. We're not like, we're humans. We don't have that ability. So anyway, okay, cool.
How about this? We say hindsight is 2020. I say BS. Because 2020 is vision. You can't have vision backwards. So your 2020 can only be forward focused, and hindsight is behind you. So we try to make decisions going forward based on our past experience, and we want to call that wisdom. But wisdom can only operate in our faith for the future. So you don't gain, there's this false idea that I gain wisdom from my past. You don't gain wisdom, because that's not where wisdom comes from. Wisdom comes from the fear of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So wisdom is not my learning from my past mistakes. My experience teaches me that. So I have experience because of my hindsight. So often we want to look backwards to learn and use that and call it, so hindsight is 2020, but I don't think we can have, if we want true 2020, we have to be facing forward.
So what would you say? So hindsight is not 2020. Hindsight is fill in the blank.
Hindsight is learning from our experience, or accepting the growth that we experienced.
Okay. No, it's interesting. I never thought about it that way. Again, not something we've talked about, but it is something you hear people say a lot. Yeah. A lot to chew on, JJ. Thank you. I already had dinner, but there we go.
What's
Well, you did good. What'd you say?
your motto?
I have a lot, but one of the things is well, ironically, I'm going to tell you a story and then tell you my motto, which is, I like what Ange said. Hindsight,
Yep.
hindsight, hindsight is insight. I like that.
That is good.
So one of my mottos is like, go find a story, or it's all about the story, or like, what will make the best story. And it's funny because I spend a lot of my time overseas, and a lot of times what happens is the ritual when I leave is that my parents drop me off at the airport. And 9 times out of 10, my dad will say, "Hey, go find a story." Like that's his
Oh,
departure, like send off moment for me. And I think that's important because we engage one another through story. Story is really important. And, I love stories. I'm a storyteller. But I was at a conference one time where a friend of mine was speaking. And before he spoke, he listened to every single speaker in the room. And he was observing what happened in the room when they spoke, what they were doing when he spoke about different things, when they spoke about different things, whoever the speaker was. And then he gets up and he says, I stood at the back of the room, and every single time, so it's a room full of like mission cross-cultural workers, and they're all very diligently taking notes the whole time anyone's speaking. But what he said is that as soon as someone would launch into a story, they'd drop their pens and they'd look up and they'd fully engage, because it bypasses the headspace. It bypasses the intellect. It becomes more of a holistic, like, heart engagement. And I think, just like historically, we're wired for story. I mean, you look at even the Bible has really strong stories, and they're human, like universal stories. And so anyway, I'm fascinated by stories. I love stories. I'm always looking for a good story. And I heard this podcast like 2 days ago. It made me think of this. So you and I were in South Africa together in April or May. I lose track of which particular month this was, when we went on the road trip. And we were staying at that like beach house, and it was not warm. And we like went back and forth, and we're like, when are we gonna like run into the ocean? And like, when are we gonna like run? We have on our swimsuits, but we're like taking off our shirt and our shorts. And when are we gonna run into the ocean? And we went back and forth a couple of times because neither of us, I think, really wanted to do it, like, because it wasn't comfortable. It was cold. It was cold. But my motive in that may be different than your motive, but my motive in those moments is, oh, this is going to be a great story. This is going to be a great adventure. Like, this is a story to tell. And you are a challenger. Like, you operate, you like to challenge people. You like to challenge yourself. I'm curious, what was I mean, this is a little bit of a side note, but like, I'm curious what your motive was in that moment.
Well, I think it is kind of like, So if anything, my hindsight tells me, make the decisions that you don't have to regret.
Mm.
So like, I don't want to regret not doing this. Just do it. I can't regret. If I just do it, I won't regret it. Like,
That's true.
I won't regret doing it, but I will regret not doing it. So just do it.
Mm. Interesting. That is
Yeah.
a little bit of a different motive because, and I have a little bit of FOMO as well. And so there, for me, there is a little bit of a play, which you're expressing kind of a different version of FOMO. Yours is more about like an intentionality and not regretting life kind of FOMO. And mine's like, I don't want to miss out on the fun adventure story. I don't want to miss the story. That's my FOMO. Like, I can't miss that moment because it's a story that I want to have as part of my life, you know?
Yeah.
And it's funny. They kind of go together, but in totally different ways.
Yeah. So I had a thought too. Actually kind of going along with FOMO a little bit, but kind of not. But is the idea of, you said something today about boundaries. What was that? What was your statement about boundaries?
Um, how do you, oh gosh, it's been like a couple hours.
Oh,
How can you live an open life, but
yes.
still have boundaries, like
Yeah.
healthy boundaries?
And I was thinking about healthy boundaries because like one of the things that I struggle with is people pleasing, and how many of us doing it. And I heard something interesting, that because when you're a people pleaser, it's very hard to set boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You cross your own boundaries all the time.
Yeah.
And but I learned that people pleasing, if you're a people pleaser, you actually, it's not about pleasing the other person, it's about pleasing you.
Hmm.
Because there's a difference between being a people pleaser and caring for a person. When you're a people pleaser, you care about what people think of you.
Mm-hmm.
When you are truly caring for someone, you don't care what they think of you. You want them to be happy. But people pleasing actually stems from a place of fear of rejection.
Hmm.
So as if you're a people pleaser, you will do whatever it takes to not hear the no from somebody, because you don't want to be rejected. So you'll go out of your way to try to keep them happy, do whatever they want, be whatever you need to be to them, change who you are to keep them happy. But it has nothing to do with them being happy. It matters how they see you, so that you know you've done everything so they can't ever reject you or say no to you.
Wow. It reminds me of the conversation that we had about just being honest,
Mm-hmm.
and how so often we, yeah, like you're meeting someone somewhere and you know you're going to be there in 40 minutes, but you tell them you're going to be there in 30 minutes. And it's like, it's sort of like an effort to save face and then expect grace for that extra 10 minutes. But like, like I've thought about it sort of since then, and it's like, okay, if I say I'm going to be there in 30 minutes, but I'm actually 40 minutes, then I'm physically in person to receive the grace from that other person. Whereas if I tell them I'm going to be there in 40 minutes, maybe face to face, they'll be like upset with me or something. This is weird psychology stuff that we do around this, and whether
Huh?
it's what you said about, yeah, people pleasing, about pleasing yourself or not being rejected. So how does that play into, you and I talk a lot about creating space and open space and living our lives with kind of intentionally unintentional, which means sort of prioritizing things and then leaving space wide open for whatever may come. How does that people pleasing thing and the lack of setting boundaries like play into living life with open space?
Well, I think because so for me, I can only talk for myself really, but everybody's and you get different kind of people pleasers. So my sister and I are both people pleasers. Grew up in the same house, same background, but we are people pleasers differently. She's a people pleaser in her doing, and that's her love language. I'm a people pleaser in my being. So she is the doer that will always constantly fuss around someone, or if they ask, she never says no. She's a yes all the time. But she'll run herself exhausted and not be able to, like, doesn't have time for herself, can't create space because she's literally running after all the needs and wants of what people can just call on you, and you're always that yes person because you want to keep them happy. And so you struggle to create space and be in a healthy place and take care of yourself because you're so busy living your life for everyone else. And then me, it's the same symptoms or same repercussions, but it comes from, it's not so much my doing as it is my being, of how people perceive me. So I'm constantly thinking, I'm wanting to people please on how are they perceiving me? Am I living up to the standard they want? Am I doing what they want me to do? Am I serving the best way? Like, are they proud of me? Maybe that's a thing. And I'm scared of that rejection of failing people. This is me being extremely vulnerable.
Thank you. No, I think, yeah, I mean, it's important that you're not the only one, you know?
Well, we do it. We don't realize we do it. And I think it was such a revelation for me to realize I'm not doing it to make other people proud in a pride way. I'm doing it in a way of, I'm so scared to disappoint them. And that fear of disappointing or that fear of rejection, so you become something you're maybe not, or you pretend to be something at a further level that maybe you're not. And so you're not being your true, authentic self in your flaws and in your failures because you're always living up to the standard that truly no one else set for you. You kind of you set the expectation of what you think people think of you. And we do it and it becomes a standard we can't live to. Or we're so scared to say no to them and our doing that, can you run and go get this for me? Or can you pick this person up from the airport? Or can you fetch lunch today? And you yes, yes, yes. And we lose our boundary of, now we don't know how to say no, because as soon as we do, that person's going to be like, what? But you always help. You're always there.
This is like, it's so funny because we earlier were like, when we have these conversations, let's just talk about what's real and whatever's happening now, you know, and not skirt the issues. Like this is stuff we both struggle with in our own way. It reminds me of a conversation. I want to kind of like hone in on what you said about the way that you're setting expectations. Like you're setting expectations of how people are perceiving you. You're kind of, oh, and this totally goes into what we talked about 2 days ago. So don't let me forget to circle back to that. The key word is this intimacy thing. Okay, so we're going to talk about that in a second. But a couple years ago, I was home in between mission projects, and I remember, that's not the case. I was having a conversation with my mom, and it was a very real, raw, authentic conversation where I was really upset. I think I had kind of been dating someone, and it had gone really south in a really horrible way. That's a story for another time. It's a story that should be like on The Bachelorette. Like that's how dramatic the whole situation was. But anyway, I just remember like telling my mom, like, I am so tired of people feeling like I disappoint people. Like I'm single. I live a very outside of the box for most of the people I know. But I grew up in a culture where, like when I was 18 years old, my Sunday school teacher had us write, like, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I remember writing on a piece of paper, married with 2.5 kids, a house and a white picket fence. And literally as I wrote it, I was like, had such a tension in my spirit because I knew I wanted none of that. And yet I felt like I had to write it down because it's all that I knew. Like I hadn't been given that freedom or that space to dream outside of the box beyond that. And there was a lot of reasons for that. But when I was talking to my mom, I just was like, I just feel like everyone expects me to be somebody that I can't be and that I'm not, and I don't want to be. And I mean, I was like super emotional about it. And she just was like, nobody expects you to be that. And then she started like naming conversations that she had had with her friends that know me and different things each one of them had said about me and said about my life. And it just really, it was like a pivotal moment for me because it just kind of put me in that position of like, wow, I am putting a narrative on my life that I'm putting in other people's mouths. Wow. That they're not saying. Now, does it mean that there haven't been people that have spoken stuff over
Yeah.
me like that. But the bigger picture narrative, I realize that actually I'm the one who's managing how I'm being perceived. And the way I've managed it is that I think they think I should live life in this very, very particular way. And so because I'm not, I'm a disappointment to all of them. So, I mean, I feel that. And I have battled that like through my adult life. Like it's taken me years to get to that place where it's like, no, I'm just who I am. I'm called to be who I am, and I'm not apologetic. You know, like when I hit a certain milestone age a couple years ago, I basically was like, screw what everybody else thinks. I don't care. I'm just living my life, you know, which I wish I would have come to 10 years earlier, you know, 20 years earlier.
There is a certain age you definitely hit, and you're just like, I'm gonna just say what I think. I don't care. And I used to look at older people like, hey, you're so like just offending people out there.
Yeah, you have no filter.
I'll just say I don't care. But there is a false representation of the expectation we create and then try to put on others. There's also a system, world system, I don't know what to call it, a societal pressure that is out there that we face. And that a lot of like, so we talked about it in the single influencers groups. If you're single and you're over like 25, what are you doing with your life? Because the run of the rut, whatever that saying is literally a run of the rut, is that you graduate school, you go to college, you get a degree, you find somebody, get married, buy a house, settle down, have kids, and have 2.5 kids and a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we've missed anything in that line, we've failed somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're still single, like, what's wrong with you? Well, what do you mean? What's wrong with me? Nothing, absolutely nothing. But we think that, and it gets in our way. Or if you didn't graduate college or high school even, like, and so the expectation society's place that we put the pressure on ourselves when we don't add up to it. If you're not working a job right now, what's wrong with you? And it's that idea. My niece is in, yeah. And so we put the pressure on ourselves, and we have to live up to that expectation, and it's exhausting. But it goes along with, we've all become people pleasers. And I think that's where it comes back to your circle back around, is we live in a society where what are we doing? Like, who are we actually pleasing, and why? What face are we trying to put on?
Yeah. So the conversation that you and I had briefly the other day was about, we were talking about influencers and people on social media who get on and they just share like the rawest of the rawest details of their life. Like every detail, and it's become a trend. I mean, we see it all the time. There are famous people from TikTok and YouTube and all the platforms. But the reality is they're craving intimacy. They're craving to be seen and known. And so that's the counterfeit of real intimacy is fame. Because, oh, if I have all these people that know me, maybe one person out of those, 10,000 people, that 1,000,000 people that follow me, whatever it is, will see me for who I am. But the reality is that we're actually created to be known and seen by God. And so that's why it's a counterfeit, is that we're sort of chasing after this intimacy to have somebody see us and know us, and we put it in a space where it's like, let me just throw myself out to the whole world and see if someone catches. And it's based on, I mean, it ties into what we've been talking about with expectations and perceptions and how you want people to perceive you. Because there's some people, just as much as like some people have like really glossy social media,
Yeah,
there are the equal amount of people who have just really messy negative, like they're only sharing the like super dramatic stuff that's going on, so it's not just one-sided, like it goes across the whole gamut.
even, I mean, so your statement was, we were not, as human beings, we were not designed to be intimately known by everyone. We weren't designed to have a huge circle and a huge following. And we know just through relationship counseling that you can only have, I think, like 6 degrees of relationship outward. Like you can't have a circle, an intimate circle bigger than that. It's not physically or mentally possible. And but yet somehow we think that the attention of others through and social media is the like literal breeding ground of this societal expectation of to be known and to be liked, and that's where you find. And I saw a thing, I posted it the other day, that said, well, it's the truth. I've seen it, like people all of a sudden getting blue ticks on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys are probably going to cancel us for saying this on our Instagram live.
I don't think we don't have enough followers, JJ.
Yeah, we only have like 3 people logged in.
Yeah. Hi, 3 people. You're not unimportant. Thanks for watching us just chat.
Yeah, but so it used to be if you had so many followers, you would get a blue tick and then become verified. Now you can buy. People are literally buying a blue tick next to their name to raise. And I'm sorry for anybody who's done this, but why? What for? What sold you a blue tick for a status? To show that you're more liked than anybody. And now that they've monetized your popularity, so the more followers you have, so if you're on TikTok, as far as I understand, if you have so many followers, you get paid per like or per comment.
It's literally like being back in high school and like taking the popularity game to like the most unhealthy, toxic, magnified situation ever. So, oh, hey, you're the most popular kid in the high school. Now you're going to get paid because so many people like you. And what you say matters more than the other person. Oh, by the way, you can buy your popularity. Like, how ridiculous would that be in the quote real world if you boil it down to like actual face-to-face interaction? And yet it's the space we live in online, and it's the space where people just again are so desperate to be seen and known and belong somewhere that they just will.
Problem with belonging.
Yeah,
it's oh, I just forgot what I was gonna say.
Belonging.
No, with our likes and our no.
Well, we did talk about the other day. It was like, I mean, this is dramatic to say, but it's like sometimes I feel like people are like selling their soul.
Yes, that's
like,
what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Because now we know, for instance, entertainment sells more than education. So I don't have any time to educate because that doesn't sell my likes. I want to entertain. Now we've become so corrupt as we've been entertained the death out. So it's hard to get entertained these days. So what do you have to come up with? What degree do you have to go to entertain somebody?
Okay, this is like not related to this, but it's kind of related to this. First of all, we live in a world that has decision fatigue, which that's probably a whole nother topic for another conversation. So I'm just gonna like note it between us mentally. But I think we live in an entertainment fatigue as well. I've noticed this about myself where it's like, how much more entertainment can I have? I feel exhausted from being entertained by other people, whether it's Netflix, whether it's, scrolling through social media, whether it's even sometimes reading a book is like, it's like too much entertainment space. And I say that because let me just give you an example. So I was talking to my hairdresser earlier, and she was telling me that she was watching TV the other day and came across this show about this couple that drinks urine, their urine and each other's urine for like health benefits. But okay, so I'm not making a comment about any of that because I know nothing about it other than I find it absolutely disgusting, but that's just my personal opinion. What I'm saying is that a show wants to entertain people with really bizarre things.
Yep.
So they're reporting on this really bizarre behavior of drinking each other's urine. And they also do urine baths as if it's not weird enough.
God damn.
Sorry.
Oh.
Hope everyone's eating. I'm drinking my water now. This is water.
I hope they drink a lot of water and don't eat a lot of asparagus.
Yeah. Oh, so, I was just like, what? Well, okay, again, side note, but the conversation I had with my friend, I was like, But like, how do you even get in a relationship where you're like, oh, hey, I drink urine, you drink urine?
Yeah, when does that come out? At what point?
So she did give me the backstory, which it had to do with the health issue he was
On
having in South America somewhere.
profile.
It was like legit, like a legit story, but I was still like, can you imagine you're like swiping on a dating app and things like, I drink urine, swipe. Like, no. I'm not on dating apps anyway. I hate them. It's another conversation. Anyway, but no offense if you like them, they just don't work for me. Anyway, did we like circle the globe with our conversation already? I don't even know what time it is, probably.
I think we got our 30 in, but I think it's a good, like, it's also about boundaries. I think it kind of all ties in together. The boundaries that we set for healthy also means the standards that you keep, or the moral values that you live by, which would be your motto or the sound of your beat. Like, who are you? And not to compromise that and for anything, not for people or for the fear of rejection or for a status or for popularity or for the pressure of society or family or your own expectations that you set, and to remain true, as raw as that is. And if you're weird, just be weird and love yourself, because that's just who you are, and who the heck cares what people think.
So, okay, so I love Austin. So I'm here in Dallas, up north of Austin. But Austin, the city of Austin, Texas, has a motto that is "Keep Austin Weird." Like, that is their city's motto, and I love it because it's just real. But I think, circling back to my own question about the space and the boundaries, like, how do you have healthy boundaries and keep space? I think you like totally hit the nail on the head, which is, it actually comes back to the core of who you are and authenticity. So again, you and I talk a lot about creating space, keeping space open. I have a very specific situation in mind when I'm asking that. And I'm thinking about, okay, like, how can I be true to myself and also be open-minded or open to, an experience, but also not compromise who I am because I want to be perceived in a certain way. Like I just said, I hit my milestone year and I'm like, who cares? I don't care what people think. Like, I am who I am. And yeah, we grow and we change, but as far as values, and your convictions. Yeah. So, anyway, I think that's the way to do it, is just be authentic to yourself, be true to yourself, and know what that is.
And the system is designed to take up your space. So to create it and find your authentic self and be true to you, it's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because it is against the grain.
I was going to say that's tweetable, but now it's Xable, whatever Twitter's called now.
Oh, yeah.
Be uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. Is that what you just said?
Be comfortable.
Be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Because that's where treasures are found. But we feel like we don't have a job. Society says, family pressure say, our own expectations says, finances say, get a job. And so we have space to cover ourselves, and the space has been given, and it's a blessing, and we can't appreciate it because we're pushing to the next thing, or take a trip, or whatever space we have, we fill it quickly because of pressure. So the system's designed to steal your space, which is the place where you discover and you can yourself.
And then you have to be stronger with having boundaries, because the system is created to do that. I several years ago, when I graduated from university, I wanted to live in New York City and work in like the fashion industry. And I had an interview with a fashion broker house. And I remember going through the interview process, and then the guy telling me, like, okay, this is just a part-time job and this is how much you would make. And I remember stepping back from that situation going, okay, let me do the math here. I'd have to work this much and make this much. So that means I would probably have to get another job, if not another job, which is the truth about a lot of people who live in big cities that are very expensive like that. And I just thought, what's the point of living in a place that I can't enjoy, that I don't have the space, to use our language here, I don't have the space to enjoy?
Yeah.
when I'm spending all of my time working to live in a space that I can't actually live in because I don't have time to live there and be there. And I ultimately obviously didn't move to New York, but I felt very grateful for that ability in that moment to see that no, I don't even have the space by making that choice. And yeah, and it comes down to choice too, because we do have space when we make space. And like you said, if somebody else isn't filling our space, we're going to fill our space. And that's another conversation probably for another time, because we talked about that the other day too.
That's exactly it. And we're so busy, society's so busy telling who we are, identifying us, that we can't stop and figure out who we are for ourselves. Or it's telling us what to think, we can't think for ourselves. And it's in the busyness. That's why I hate that word. Like, I'm busy, so busy. I can't stand it. When it comes out of my mouth, I'm like, bleh. Like, don't say that, JJ. Stop. If you feel busy, stop being busy, because it's just such a waste of space word. That's why I don't like it. Like, you're busy what? Busy doing what? Stop being busy. Maybe like be intentional, be productive, be generous, be hardworking, but don't be busy.
I love that. I love that. It's sort of the challenge to say, like, I mean, I was even thinking about, I'm leaving Sunday to go overseas for a while again. And I'm like, I really intentionally left my week pretty wide open because there's always stuff that happens that's unexpected, and it's creating that margin, which we talked about a couple weeks ago on our Instagram live. But I thought, I was thinking about a specific person in my life, and I thought, this person probably thinks I'm really busy because maybe I'm not being very responsive right now. But the reality is I'm not busy. I'm being very intentional.
Yeah.
I'm being very intentional to kind of live at a slow pace in this last week when I've got to pack and I've got to make sure that I've got this, and I've been seeing doctors and doing all these things. But I'm actually being very intentional, and that is a different language than just being busy, because I'm not busy. I'm not busy right now. I'm just intentional.
Yeah.
I like that. So we can hold each other accountable on that, because we use the word intentionality a lot anyway.
Yeah.
So just a good space to do that. So, well, we should wrap up, but just good to always connect and see where these conversations go, and we'll see what happens next time we have one of these. We're going to be flipped. I'm going to be over in Europe, and you're going to be here, and so it will probably be my nighttime, your daytime, and all of that. So
cool.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you next time, whenever that next time is. Okay. Bye.